John, an experienced drone enthusiast, decided to explore a new area. As he flew his drone, he noticed a small door on top of a nearby mountain. Intrigued, he flew the drone closer to investigate. As he zoomed in, he saw that the door was very tiny, and curiosity got the better of him. John decided to climb up the rocky mountain to take a closer look. But little did he know that was a very, very bad decision. Getting into the old metal door was anything but easy, but with sheer grit and determination, John managed to do it. And he was blown away by what he was seeing when he was making his way deeper and deeper into the mountain. Somebody had created this for a purpose, and when John finally found out what that purpose really was, he nearly froze from pure shock. He knew very well beforehand that he was not supposed to be in here. This was the confirmation that made that actually real for him. John started to run out of the mountain as quickly as possible. He just hoped that the damage had not already been done here. But what did John find in the mountain? Why was it hidden behind a strange metal door? And why was going through it a very bad decision? John had wanted to explore this area for a long time now, but the local authorities had always been in his way. These forests had been a protected area for decades now, and getting in was not easy. At least, when you tried to do it in a legal way. After years of trying to gain access to the area with a permit, John had given up on this. He had even been willing to travel with somebody keeping an eye on him, but even this did not convince the governing bodies. And so he decided to take a risk. His desire to explore was just too great. If he could not enter these woods himself, then maybe his drone could. He would stay on the edge of the area while he would pilot his drone through all that beautiful land, getting the shot he so desperately wanted. He knew very well how much this footage could be worth. As an experienced drone pilot, John had been selling the footage he managed to capture his flying friend online to make an extra buck. And he had quickly figured out that footage of places that were illegal to enter sold very well and for a good price. But today, he would actually end up capturing something much more valuable. As he was flying his drone through the sky, hoping not to attract too much attention, John noticed a small mountain or rock formation that seemed to be at the center of the protected area. It was a beautiful contrast against all the greenery, and John wanted to get a good shot of it. But then he saw it. This mountainside did not completely consist of rock formations. There was actually something strange located near the top, something that seemed to catch the sun in a different way, creating a glittering. John speculated that it might be a metal object of some sort. And as he flew his drone even closer to it, he just about managed to make out that it was a door of some sort. John was very surprised by his discovery. What was something like this doing in the middle of a protected area? And then, something else suddenly happened. His trustworthy drone suddenly started to malfunction heavily. Within seconds, the screen started to glitch, and John lost the controls. The screen went completely black, and the last thing that he saw was that the drone was crashing towards the foot of the mountain. John was stunned. He had no idea what could have gone wrong here, as he had never had this problem before, and he made sure that everything was in perfect working condition before he started flying. He always made sure of that, seeing as the drone was way too expensive to just be careless with. Now John was faced with a dilemma. Not only did he want to get his expensive drone back and see if there was anything he could still salvage from it, he also wanted to check out this strange metal door that he had spotted in the mountain before the drone suddenly fell out of the sky. But to do that, he knew that he would have to enter the protected area. He could already get in trouble for flying his drone there, but actually entering the ground on foot was a whole different story. But John did not feel like he had another choice, right? And he decided to scale the fence. His heart was nearly beating out of his chest as John was trying to make his way through the thick vegetation. It was clear that no human had been here in a long time, and this frightened John for a couple of reasons. It was clear that the local government was very strict in enforcing the protection of the area, and maybe they already knew that he had scaled the fence. But with no humans having been in a large closed part of the woods, who knows what animals could be going about their business in here? Predators like wolves or bears could potentially thrive in an area like this. He just prayed that no other human or creature would spot him on this journey. John was using his GPS to make sure that he was still heading toward the mountain, as the forest was so difficult to traverse that you could easily get off track here. And besides that, every unfamiliar sound around John scared him. He was incredibly on edge. After about an hour of walking, he finally found what he was looking for. His drone was hanging in some vines high in the trees. The food thing was that these vines had stopped its fall and it looked to still be in very good condition. But the bad thing was that it was hanging way too high for him to reach it. He would have to climb the trees to get it, but with no equipment, that would be very difficult and dangerous. There was not really a good way to get the equipment down, so for right now, John decided to just leave it up there and continue to his other goal of the journey, the strange metal door. This was also not easy to reach at all. John looked up the mountain, and even though the rock wall was very steep, it did seem like there was a good way to climb up there. It at least seemed to be a lot more doable than climbing the trees. And who knows, maybe he would find a ladder or something like that behind the door. You never know, right? Was this climb even possible? Standing at the foot of the mountain, John took a deep breath, trying to calm the growing doubt in his mind. The towering peak loomed ominously ahead. Although he had faced challenges before, this particular ascent seemed more daunting than he'd anticipated. He pondered. As he started his ascent, John realized the deceptive nature of the mountain's terrain. What looked like solid ground from afar turned into loose gravel underfoot. Hidden crevices posed threats at unexpected turns. He regretted not bringing more suitable gear, but he was determined to move forward. With each step, memories of past adventures flooded John's mind. He remembered sneaking into forbidden zones, capturing stunning yet illegal footage. Each risk taken was driven by a thirst for the unknown, for an untold story. Those challenges and rewards were what motivated him now, propelling him up the rocky face. As John climbed higher, the sheer magnitude of the mountain became evident. From below, it seemed so manageable, but up here, surrounded by endless rock and steep ledges, he felt like an ant against a vast backdrop. The horizon extended further than he'd ever seen before. Was he really prepared for what lay beyond? Exhaustion started to creep in. Pausing on a rocky outcrop, John considered his options. The drone was lost, and perhaps that should have been his cue to turn back. Yet, the metal door's intrigue overshadowed his fatigue. Pushing past the tiredness and doubts, John felt an unyielding pull toward the mountain's summit. The mysterious door, with its unknown origins and purpose, had ignited his curiosity like nothing before. This was an enigma he needed to solve, regardless of the physical toll it took. After scaling a challenging cliff, John found himself on a ledge overlooking a breathtaking expanse of nature. The lush green canopy below seemed to stretch on forever. Taking a moment to capture the beauty in his mind, he felt a mix of awe and humility. As he ventured further, John discovered etchings on some boulders. They appeared to be of ancient origin, possibly made by indigenous tribes. Were they a form of guidance? A warning? John was no historian, but he felt a connection to those who had traversed this path before him. The final stretch to the door felt both exhilarating and ominous. With every step, the metallic entrance grew larger, emphasizing its out-of-place nature in this wild setting. John's heart raced, anticipating the secrets and stories hidden behind the imposing barrier. The grandeur of the door was evident. As John took a closer look, he could see that every inch was covered in finely etched patterns, not just ornamental, but perhaps symbolic. While the door's size suggested it was built for something large to pass through, its detailed design indicated purpose, care, and intention. John was drawn to an almost concealed side entryway, much smaller and less grand than the main entrance. Brushing aside overgrown vines, he wondered how many people might have used this entrance before him. There was something intimate about it, a secret waiting to be unveiled. The hidden door was bound by a padlock, weathered and rusted over time. The metal had been corroded by years of exposure to the elements, suggesting that this entrance hadn't been used in a long while. Undeterred, John began attacking the lock with his water bottle, his strikes ringing through the silent mountain. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The darkness was almost tangible, engulfing John. The flashlight's beam offered minimal visibility, revealing a cavernous space ahead. The smell of dampness and decay filled the air, an ancient testament to the passage of time. John quickly realized that the cavern wasn't just one large space. Various pathways branched out, each more enticing and mysterious than the last. The temptation to explore was strong, but he knew he needed to be cautious. Getting lost within this labyrinth was a very real danger. Silence reigned supreme, broken only by the muted sounds of dripping water. The weight of history bore down on John. The mountain's walls, etched with the scars of time, seemed to whisper tales of those who might have trod these paths long before him. The air within the mountain grew thinner, and with it, John felt his energy waning. Each step became heavier, each breath more labored. The mountain seemed to be warning him, pushing back against this intrusion into its ancient depths.
Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story.
With every new corridor and chamber he discovered, John's excitement transformed into a nagging concern. The sameness of each turn, the lack of any distinct markings, all started to play tricks on his mind. Panic gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. Had he ventured too deep? Staying calm, John retraced his steps, marking certain points with small stones. He remembered reading about ancient explorers and how they used simple methods to navigate unknown terrains. He decided to trust his instincts, moving slowly and methodically, hoping to find his way back. In an alcove, remnants of an old campsite greeted him. There was a sense of eerie abandonment, as if the previous visitors had left in a hurry. This wasn't just a place of exploration for John anymore. It was a witness to stories yet untold. Deep within the cavern's heart, a gentle glow bathed the rocky walls. This wasn't the artificial beam of John's flashlight, but a natural illumination from bioluminescent fungi. The fungi, shimmering with a soft blue hue, created an ethereal pathway that whispered of nature's mysterious ways. It felt as if the mountain itself was providing John some comfort, guiding him through the encompassing darkness. A breathtaking expanse awaited John after squeezing through a particularly tight crevice. A vast corridor, both wide and high, made him feel minuscule. The architecture suggested deliberation, with archways and alcoves intricately carved into the walls. Columns stood as ancient sentinels, echoing a forgotten grandeur. A sense of awe overcame him, pondering the hands and tools that might have crafted such magnificence. The hallway was not just an architectural marvel. It was a gallery of the past. Displayed on raised platforms and within the alcoves were remnants of a bygone era: broken pottery, rusted weapons, and faded textiles. Each artifact told tales of daily life, of celebrations, wars, and perhaps ceremonies. John felt an overwhelming respect for a civilization he could only dream of understanding. The hallway's relics hinted at once animated discussions, laughter, and rituals. But now, the silence was profound. Every footstep John made echoed back, bouncing off the walls. The occasional drip of water from a stalactite was a stark reminder of the loneliness that the mountain now held within its embrace. It was a juxtaposition of life's transience against nature's permanence. Drawn by an inexplicable pull, John decided to venture up a spiraling stone staircase. Each step was worn, evidence of countless feet that had trodden the same path. The ascent was both physically challenging and mentally exhilarating. As he climbed, the surrounding ambiance shifted. The air grew colder, carrying whispers of a different part of the mountain's tale. Suddenly, in the midst of his ascent, a new sound pierced the silence. Footsteps, distinctly different from his own. They echoed eerily, making it hard to decipher their distance or direction. A shiver ran down John's spine. The realization dawned upon him: he might not be the only living being journeying through the mountain's heart. The once bright beam of his flashlight now flickered erratically. Dread settled in John's stomach as he fumbled for spare batteries, only to remember he had left them behind. The bioluminescent fungi, though mesmerizing, didn't provide sufficient light for navigation. His situation was becoming perilous, and the need to find another light source or an exit grew urgent. Even in the weakening light, John noticed peculiar markings. They sprawled across vast sections of the wall. Symbols, patterns, and scripts he couldn't recognize. This wasn't mere decoration, but a message, perhaps from the mountain's ancient inhabitants. He traced them with his fingers, hoping for some revelation about the mountain's secrets, or a clue to find his way. The mountain's interior was proving to be a complex maze. Passageways branched off in countless directions, some ending in dead ends, while others seemed to loop back on themselves. With a dimming flashlight and growing exhaustion, the weight of despair began to press on John. He needed to find an escape, or at least a sign indicating the right direction. Sitting on a cold stone step, John took a deep breath. The air's thinness was evident, making every inhalation a bit more laborious. It struck him just how deep he'd ventured. The outside world seemed like a distant memory. But with that realization came determination. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to let the mountain claim him. Amid the shadows, John noticed an area that stood apart. Age-old equipment, constructed from materials he didn't recognize, lay scattered. These weren't relics of an ancient civilization, but rather machines with intricate designs and unfamiliar functionalities. Although worn with time, they bore an aura of purpose and sophistication. What could they be for? Beyond the machinery, a grand chamber revealed itself, resembling a control room of sorts. Panels adorned with cryptic symbols, levers, and large circular screens hinted at the room's significance. Amid the dust and cobwebs, John felt as though he had stumbled upon the very heart of the mountain's secrets, a place that once pulsed with activity and purpose. Curiosity overcoming caution, John tentatively pressed a worn button. A hum vibrated through the ground, followed by a slow, illuminating glow from the screens. Ancient mechanisms whirred to life, projecting aerial images of the mountain's labyrinthine corridors. More intriguingly, several chambers appeared to have never been accessed before. Was this what his predecessor had sought? Beside the control panel, A drawer yielded aged, brittle documents. Logs, written in a mix of familiar and foreign scripts, spoke of expeditions, discoveries, and something termed the Mautut, mountain's core. The notes danced around a momentous discovery, but frustratingly, the final pages were missing. John felt tantalizingly close to a profound truth. The mountain's quiet was disrupted by a distant, ominous rumble. The machinery's activation might have alerted something, or someone. John's heart raced. He had delved deep and perhaps lingered too long. With the echoing rumble growing nearer, the need to retrace his steps and emerge into the open became imperative. John began his descent with urgency, the weight of his discoveries quickening his pace. The towering walls seemed to close in on him as he navigated tight squeezes and slippery slopes. Every turn held the promise of an exit, but also the potential for dead ends. The journey down felt even more daunting than the climb had been. Emerging into a familiar cavern, John's heart leapt at the sight of his drone, lying undisturbed. Its presence was a beacon of the modern world amidst ancient mysteries, offering a semblance of comfort and familiarity. With the drone safely in hand, the exit's beckoning grew stronger. As he neared the mountain's base, John couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Unfamiliar rustles and whispers echoed, suggesting a possible pursuit. Each noise heightened his senses, making shadows dance menacingly. Was he truly alone? Or had awakening the machinery stirred something more? Twice, John barely escaped notice. First, silhouettes on a ledge above him hinted at watchful observers. Later, a group passed him as he hid behind an outcrop, their hushed conversations revealing their search for him or something he had activated. It seemed the mountain had guardians keen on keeping its secrets. The final stretch wasn't without its perils. A nest of snakes barred one path, forcing a detour. Later, John had a heart-stopping encounter with a mountain lion, eyes glowing fiercely in the dark. As he finally broke free into the moonlit night, the mountain stood tall behind him, its mysteries still largely intact, save for the glimpses he had uncovered. As John moved further, an expansive chamber appeared ahead, concealed by layers of rocks and vines. Its vastness was breathtaking, resembling a hangar more than a natural formation. The ceiling was high, with strange patterns inscribed. Stalactites hung like intricate chandeliers, casting eerie shadows on the ground below. In the center of this magnificent hall, shielded from the elements, sat a jet. This wasn't just any aircraft. Its sleek design and unfamiliar markings suggested it belonged to an era far ahead of our time, or perhaps from a past too distant to remember. John stood in awe, realizing this discovery changed everything. The sheer significance of the jet, juxtaposed against the ancient surroundings, hammered home the urgency. John couldn't stay. This place was safeguarded for a reason. He quickly captured images with his drone, ensuring evidence of his discovery before making a hasty retreat. Emerging from the cavernous depths, the open air was a welcome relief. As the sunlight bathed his face, the threat and wonder of the mountain seemed like another world. The protective barrier of trees and bushes felt like a threshold crossed, marking his return to the known world. Back at camp, John replayed the drone footage, juxtaposing it against his own memories. The images of the jet were clear and undeniable. He felt like an archaeologist who had unearthed not relics of the past, but rather a foreshadowing of the future, or a chapter of history long forgotten. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. Unveiling this discovery could change history, but it also held risks. What if others sought the jet for nefarious purposes? What did its presence signify? John grappled with the dilemma of protecting the find and informing the world. After much thought, John decided he had to share his discovery. But how? The approach needed to be cautious. Crafting a plan, he made duplicates of his footage, hid the original in a safe location, and began reaching out anonymously to trusted figures in archaeology and aviation. Even in the relative safety of his camp, John couldn't shake off the feeling of being observed. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call took on an ominous note. The mountain's guardians, real or imagined, seemed to extend their presence into his very psyche. Within days of discreetly sharing snippets of the footage, the story exploded. Media outlets worldwide broadcasted the images of the ancient yet futuristic jet. Speculations ran wild, theories abounded, and John's discreet world was turned upside down. The hidden mountain and its enigmatic jet became the epicenter of global curiosity.